It's been a year since my initial PodGo review, and we've seen a handful of updates and improvements since then, but the question remains, how are they holding up in 2021? What's up guys, my name is Taylor, and today we're going to be talking about my little buddy here, the PodGo. Since that initial review, we've seen the addition of the 𝗔𝗳𝗳𝗶𝗹 amp models, as well as some fan favorites like the Precision Drive and, oh yeah, this guy. But even with these additions, it doesn't feel like we've seen the amount of updates we should have from the PodGo, or even the HX Stomp for that matter. Hell, we've probably had more releases of new products from the Helix family than we have had actual major firmware updates. And that may be due to its limited DSP. Many of you are probably aware of the parallel between the PodGo's 1.21 update and the Helix's 3.0 update. However, the PodGo is missing the resource-intensive poly effects. To me, this says that the major cost cut in the PodGo is the processor, and it's just not built to handle more DSP-intensive effects. And maybe that's also why we haven't seen the addition of the newer Helix effects in the PodGo. But still, the PodGo has an impressive arsenal and many desirable features that you would find in the more expensive Helix line of products, like snapshots. So for this review, I thought I would cover some of my favorite amps and effects and features, as well as offer my unsolicited opinions on what could be fixed in whatever update Line 6 wants to make to the PodGo, besides adding built-in wireless support because they already did that. And knowing Line 6, in 6 months we'll probably get an updated version with 2 extra foot switches. What's up guys, I have my PodGo plugged in here. We're recording directly out of the PodGo. I have my own impulse response loaded up, which is a thing you can do in the PodGo. It's pretty sweet. This is my Jackson Kelly guitar! Where'd that come from? This is a Mesa Boogie patch that I used recently in a shootout with the MG300 that's not back there, it's around here somewhere. So since my initial PodGo review, I've learned how to use this thing a little bit more, and you know, there have been some great updates with it too, and I just want to share with you, my beautiful viewers, the things that I enjoy about this pedal. I have a list here actually, because I'm old and I forget things. So a lot of the times I use this tube screamer, but one of the distortions that I really like on this is the Horizon Drive. It's an excellent drive to use as a boost, and it will tighten up the sloppiest of amplifiers, including the dual rectifier. Dual rectifier is kind of a sloppy amp. It's got a lot of bass. And speaking of drives, another one of my favorite additions to the PodGo was the inclusion of the HM2, which they called the Swedish chainsaw. And if you put it in full Swedish chainsaw settings in front of a clean amp, this is what it sounds like. And I know HM2 fans are gonna hate me for this, but this is kind of the way that I prefer to run it, is in front of a distorted amp with the gain set really low, and you get something like this. But to each their own. And this brings me to another addition that I really loved in the PodGo, and these were all included in the 1.21, something like that, update, and that is the 𝗔𝗳𝗳𝗶𝗹. Really cool amp on its own, but even cooler when you put a boost in front of it. Okay, the last thing that I really like about the PodGo is the snapshots feature. So what's cool about snapshots is if you have a signal chain set up and let's say you want to turn on and off certain effects, but you want to do it in the touch of one button with no audio lag, you can use snapshots for that. Let me show you how. So we're gonna go back out to the main view here. I'm gonna hit this mode button, and I'm gonna hit both the up and down arrows at the same time. And then you're gonna see the snapshots come up. That's my snapshot 1. I can switch to snapshot 2. If we go in here and you can see this little 2 up here in the right corner, let's say maybe we want the tube screamer to turn off, but we want the Swedish chainsaw to come on. You can set that up in snapshots. And then a little bonus thing I like here. Let's set up snapshot 3. One of the most common things I get asked about is the pitch shifter. And then what you do is you press both the page buttons here together, go to bypass control, and select the parameter that you want to adjust. We want to adjust the position, and we want to assign this to the expression pedal. We can also just press learn, and it will automatically assign it to that function. So now we have something like this. Okay, so that's a little bit extreme. Let's set the heel pitch and the toe pitch here. We'll set them to -12 and +12 respectively. Let's just go ahead and save that guy. Boom. And now if we go back to snapshot 1, it will turn our pitch shifter whammy pedal weird effect thing off, and we can just go back to our normal rhythm tone. So all in all, I really enjoy the Podgo, and you know, my major issue with Line 6 has always just been that they release way too many products instead of supporting the products that they've already released. I mean, if you objectively look at the Podgo, it's a really excellent tool and it has a lot of great features, but it's only had really one major firmware update in the entire time that I've owned it. And granted, that firmware update had a lot of excellent features, some of which are my favorite in the Podgo, but really one major update in 1 year? It's kind of weird. And to add insult to injury, they've released a newer updated Podgo with built-in wireless support, as well as an 𝗦𝗣𝗂𝗡𝗧𝗏, which has 2 additional foot switches, and it's pretty much the same beyond that as far as I can tell. And it just feels like they have more devotion towards themselves and developing new products to sell than making the products that they already have better for the users that have already purchased them. And on a personal note, that's a big reason that I went with the Fractal Axe-Fx 3 versus the rack-mounted Helix. I could probably get the same stuff done with the Helix, but in the time that I've owned the Axe-Fx 3, which is just a little over a year now, they've had a handful of major firmware updates, which include new amps and effects and bug fixes. I mean, they even completely renovated their whole modeling algorithm to make it 5% closer to the real amplifier. So maybe that matters to you, maybe it doesn't, but for me personally, I just really like knowing that the main rig that I use is based around a company that is continuously updating and improving it, even though I bought it over a year ago. But that shouldn't take anything away from the Podgo, especially if you like the form factor and you like the features that it already has. Well, then you don't really need any updates, right? So to summarize this whole thing, I think that the Podgo is an excellent product still, and I think for people that will really take advantage of the form factor, it's gonna work really well for you, you know, especially like if you're playing shows or something like that. It's an excellent product for that sort of environment. But if you're the type of person that needs the newest, latest, and greatest thing, or you're looking for a product that's gonna get continually updated with new effects and stuff like that pretty regularly, then it might leave you with something to be desired. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did, I will link my original review for the Podgo over here, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.